My name is Lex, and this week on Spidey Signals, me and my co-host Alex discuss Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, The Fall of Mary Jane Watson, and whether or not this is the greatest superhero movie of all time. Get ready to find the hero in all of us, because it's time for Spidey Signals. Welcome back to Spidey Signals, the podcast where two guys with the same name talk about Spider-Man movies. I'm Lex.
And I'm Alex.
Last week we had a very successful first episode. I think it went over very well.
No death threats. So
No death threats. So we're getting somewhere. Remember, spideysignalspod@gmail.com.
Send your loveliest threat.
Spidey Signals Podcast. God damn it, I don't even remember our own email address.
Someone out there with that email will get something now, I guess.
Somebody. Anyway, this week we're talking about Spider-Man 2. This movie was released on June 30th, 2004. It's directed by Sam Raimi, of course. It is written not by David Koepp. It's got a different writer this time. His name is Alvin Sargent, who actually won 2 Academy Awards for his screenplays for the movies Julia and Ordinary People, which I think is very interesting. The story is by Alfred Goh, Miles Miller, and Michael Chabon. Couldn't find a whole lot of information about those guys. They're the ones who came up with the plot, and Sargent wrote the story. Once again, starring Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker / Spider-Man, Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson, Alfred Molina as Otto Octavius, Dr. Octopus, James Franco, once again, as Harry Osborn, Rosemary Harris as Aunt May, and the man, J.K. Simmons, back at it again, J. Jonah Jameson. Music is by Danny Elfman, and I wanted to point this one out. Effects are by John Dykstra. It's a different effects team from the last movie, and it really tells. You can really tell that it is.
I have written down when I was taking my notes. I wrote down John Dykstra, 2 big question marks right after that, because all my life somehow it slipped past my radar that John Dykstra worked on this fucking movie.
He won an Oscar for this movie.
I did know that Dykstra has won awards in the industry, but I wasn't aware, A, that this one won, and B, that he even had anything to do with it. And it is so telling. He's a legend for a reason, and I was blown away again just thinking about the fact that he was attached to this one.
For those who are not in the know, John Dykstra did a lot of the effects for the original Star Wars. He won an Oscar for that movie. He made the Dykstra Flex camera, which is one of the first remotely controlled, computer-controlled cameras. And he won an Oscar for Best Special Effects for this movie. And they still look really good, especially compared to the PS2 graphics of the last movie.
Yeah, I would say they hold up considerably better as well.
Yes. Budget of $200 million, a little more expensive. Box office of $789 million, so a little less than the first movie, but still a hefty take in the summer of 2004. So, Alex, what are your personal experiences of the movie?
So my personal experiences with it are pretty straightforward. I was, riding the high of the early 2000s, having seen the original over and over and over on home video. And 2 comes out in theaters. I have a distinct memory of seeing it in the theater in the days before, you would know anything about plot leaks or anything like that. You weren't accidentally getting shit spoiled for you left and right on the internet. You just went and you saw a movie and you loved it, goddamn. I had that experience. I was about 8 years old. I saw it with my brother, my mom, and my aunt. And I distinctly remember we went to Burger King for lunch after, so that was a good day. I'm one of those who was blessed with the opportunity to play the video game tie-in as a child. Spider-Man 2, as a movie and as a game, stand head and shoulders above things that came out that summer. Ask anybody that's played that game. Before the PS4 game, Spider-Man 2 was the best Spider-Man game. So, I give the movie a lot of credit for inspiring the game. They're both, 2 halves of a fantastic coin. But as far as Spider-Man 2 is concerned, that was really what got me into like, oh, I want to go to the movies again later. It was a really like, yeah, man, looking back in hindsight, this is only occurring to me now, but like, if I could pick any quote unquote superhero movie to have seen in the theater that day, I think I would pick Spider-Man 2 out of anything because it's just so it lends itself very well to the screen, if that makes any kind of sense. It's the quintessential like big summer movie, if you ask me.
Yeah, like we talked about in the last episode. Um, the Raimi trilogy is very melodramatic, and it's very bombastic and theatrical.
Hmm.
So seeing them in the theater, I think, is a very good way to sort of capture that energy.
Hmm.
I'm in the same boat as you. Like I said in the last episode, I was a little too young to see the first one in theaters. But I do distinctly remember seeing this movie, specifically the scene where it's Peter's birthday party really early on.
Hmm. Hmm.
I remember seeing that in the theater, but I absolutely loved it. I watched the first two movies on home video all the fucking time. Huge fan. I still have like folders and magnets on my fridge and like all sorts of merchandise from when the movie came out.
I had the 6-inch Spider-Man action figure, the really articulated one.
Yes, I think I had a Doctor Octopus one.
If there's something I regret losing in my life, it's that. I wish I knew where he was right now.
I never played the video game because I think I was a little too young to for lots of video games. We had an Xbox, the first Xbox. That was our console of choice. But we never got Spider-Man 2. I probably would have been too young to even like comprehend how to run around and swing in a 3D environment.
Right.
So maybe it's better that I didn't do that.
I mostly played that at a friend's house. I own a GameCube copy of it now.
Uh, I've had to emulate it on my computer.
Oh, wow, 21st century.
I know. Uh, but yeah, I think that's it for me. Alex, do you want to take us through the plot of this movie?
I would absolutely love to. So, Spider-Man the second, Spider-Man Jr., if you will, starts off with the Alex Ross art. Fucking absolute legend, that art.
Ugh,
It feels so lovingly done. It feels
it's
so,
so good. Alex Ross is such a master.
as far as artists in this fan base and in this franchise go, you could hurt a lot worse for any given piece of Alex Ross art. Even for a bad movie, I would love to see Alex Ross just, any portrait of like even Garfield, me would be like, yeah, that's fucking Alex Ross.
Have you
Uh,
read Marvels?
I've not, no.
It's very very good. There's the last issue of it is mostly Spider-Man focused, but
Hmm.
it's really well done. And one of my favorite things about this is that obviously it's a recap of the events of the first movie in painting form. One of my favorite things is that Alex Ross just changes the suit because he doesn't it's not comic accurate enough for him. So like he
Sure.
makes the eyes more accurate and he changes the web lines to be black. I just think that's really really funny.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
I love it.
I especially get a chuckle from the painting of ripped Peter that is featured in the beginning of this movie because, like, if you think of like the shot of Peter like flexing in the mirror like that in your head and look at the painting, they're so different. But it's like it's not like Rob Liefeld bad or anything like that. But it feels cartoony and it's funny to
It's
me.
just
I
very
don't know.
obviously model body Toby head.
Yeah, there you go. We get some more wonderful Rick Deckard Peter Parker narration about
Sleepy Peter Parker. Sleepy
I
Peter.
I think he goes it starts off with, real exposition heavy stuff about how he's chosen responsibility over MJ. We learn that Peter is on top of his regular Daily Bugle job, he is a pizza delivery boy for Joe's Pizza, a real life New York establishment that if you go there today has a giant "We were in Spider-Man" sign on the wall. Uh, he works for a man named Mr. Aziz, who is a complete hard ass. Not like a J. Jonah Jameson hard ass, but if you've ever worked at a pizza place, it's a pretty accurate take, I think. People that own pizza places, or at least manage them, aren't really happy people. Um, so after
Go!
go after another late delivery on Peter's part, he had some Spider-Man issues along the way, that lend them, lend themselves to him. He has to, make sure kids don't get splattered across the highway. That takes a little more prevalence in his life than getting pizzas to building on time. Peter is fired from his job at Joe's Pizza. He's an unreliable pizza delivery boy, which blows me away because you would think on his little scooter, even with his reflexes, he'd be a little quicker than that. I don't know.
But I love that immediately right out of the gate we go into like a bunch of really stupid Raimi quotes. Like he stole that guy's pizzas. We got pizza time. We got goal.
Beat after beat after beat. These I think they're mimetic for a reason. You know what I mean? Rather, they've become mimetic for a reason. Everyone remembers it.
All right. So last episode, I had a theory about the Star Wars prequels and these movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't elaborate on it, so I don't want to leave
Sure.
everybody hanging. So I'm going to do that now. I feel like they're very similar. They both came out at around the same time, early to mid 2000s. A lot of the same. So that in that case, there's a lot of the same fan base, a lot of crossover, or at least a lot of people who are around the same age, early mid 20s, who are like nostalgic for those movies. Both franchises ended up getting bought out by Disney, and getting new versions of them. And the people who like the Raimi movies and the prequels usually do not like the Disney versions. They also have lots of memes that they like to run into the ground and mostly aren't funny anymore unless they're in the movie. But there's a lot of weird. I feel like if there was a Venn diagram, it would be almost a perfect circle. There's a lot of weird overlap between those two groups.
Yeah, it lends itself a lot to what you're talking about as far as timing and demographic goes. I imagine, if you were seeing movies in that time span, you saw both. It was just kind of a
I did.
I absolutely did. Revenge of the Sith was the first movie I saw twice in the theater.
I remember seeing Revenge of the Sith. I remember seeing this movie in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, there you go. But as far as back to plot. Peter is fired from his pizza job, which is sad. We get a cutaway back to him at the Bugle being fired and rehired. Peter is bringing artistic, non-Spider-Man pictures to Jameson, who absolutely detests that. Derides Peter a lot for it, and Peter coughs up one Spider-Man picture, gets paid for it. But the pay is barely enough to cover an advance he recently got. They're hitting us with like 1-2 punches, more like 4 or 5 punches in a row when I get to the end of it. But Peter is having a really shitty week.
This whole like first half is just a gigantic conga line of torment for Peter. Nothing goes his way.
They've got him by the collar, and it's just like a slap across each.
It's almost cruel at this point. It's kind of a little excessive.
We do get a little bit of slight characterization from Betty Brant in this movie, just a hair more than the first one. She's nice to Peter for a second, whereas she just kind of spoke to him for a second in the first.
I like what they do with Robbie in this movie too.
Yeah. Robbie shows some spine. He shows a little initiative.
He's very much pro Spider-Man, and he absolutely positively knows that Peter is Spider-Man.
That's a fun idea. Yeah.
There's no way he doesn't know.
He's a great foil for this Jameson too. Hoffman as well. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Hoffman.
Because we didn't mention him in the last episode.
Not at all. Yeah, which is crazy because I love Ted Raimi. Ted Raimi, he's probably one of my favorite stupid little side characters in Twin Peaks. Whenever you spot him in something, you can always go, "Oh, great, Ted Raimi."
It's Ted Raimi.
If I saw him at like Walmart, I'd be not surprised. You know
I would
what
say
I mean?
in exactly that tone of voice. Like, oh, hey, Ted Raimi.
Hey, wow, Ted Raimi. He's Sam Raimi's brother.
Brother of Sam Raimi.
Peter's luck continues to run out when he is late for another of Dr. Connors, his professor's lecture. Dr. Connors, of course, going on to become the Lizard. Not in this film, not in any of these films, but it's always fun to have those kind of seeds planted, I think. But yes, Peter is chastised by his teacher to his face, which is really weird because even when I was like late and missed out with teacher stuff, they were never like in my face on the sidewalk. Like, you're so brilliant, but you're lazy and you need to try.
You suck.
Like,
that's what I mean when it's like really excessive. Just like everybody is a fucking asshole to Peter Parker. It's like, tone it back, guys.
Everyone's having like nightmares about Peter, and they wake up subconsciously like, "Why do I hate Peter Parker today?" You know what I mean? They hate.
Everybody has a rock in their shoes. They're just really fucking pissed off at Peter.
So after this horrendous day, Peter goes home, and we do get another sighting of the I believe it's an Oldsmobile or a Delta or something like that, the Raimi car.
Yes.
Even though in the last movie when it got jacked from Uncle Ben, the roof got shot through like 5 or 6 times, it looks fine in this movie in Spider-Man 3, so I gotta
Probably got
imagine.
body work done. That's why May is in debt.
Yeah, they spent $20,000 restoring a classic car. Peter, um, he's forgotten his own birthday, which is just very, very good writing for Parker luck kind of stuff. You know what I mean? That seems like a very Peter Parker thing to do, is have such a shitty day that you forget it's your birthday. And he's welcomed home to a surprise party with Aunt May, Mary Jane, and Harry. Harry is immediately like, "Hey, Peter, how you doing? I'm still pissed about how Spider-Man murdered my father."
Harry is frothing at the mouth to talk about Spider-Man. It's really funny. It's like, yeah, your friend Spider-Man? Yeah, you know you like Spider-Man? Just like, dude, come on.
I don't remember if it's ever outright stated in the movie, but Harry and Peter aren't living together at this point anymore. Peter is renting the shittiest apartment in the world from Mr. Ditkovich, who we'll get to. But yeah, I think it's funny. Upon watching this movie, I was listening. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, other fans. But yeah, I don't think it's ever outright stated. Oh, they don't live together anymore. But I gotta imagine, like, try to sleep at night knowing the guy, 6 feet from you is thinking about murdering you all night long. It's. I imagine Peter chose to end that rather than Harry. I don't know. That's
Yeah, probably. Because, if James Franco was constantly harassing you about a guy who he thinks is your friend, like, he just takes pictures of him. Why do everybody assume that they're friends?
And he knows that Peter is poor, so why is he trying to stop him from making money taking pictures of Spider-Man?
It's like, yeah, like, this is all he's got. Come on, man.
Anyway, Harry has been promoted to head of special projects at Oscorp. Now, this is Harry Osborn we're talking about, this version of Harry
Yes.
Osborn. Wasn't it made clear in the first movie he was like only even staying afloat in high school because he was best friends with Peter Parker? Like, isn't he supposed to be an capital I idiot? This Harry Osborn, he's the head of special projects, and like, I get nepotism as a thing, but not only is Daddy dead, the project he's in charge of is making a baby like sun in our
A
atmosphere,
miniature sun.
and we've got Harry Osborn in charge of it. Like, I get the convenience, like, for he needs to have this job for the script, but oh my god, is that a bluff on the resume? You know what I mean?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think James Franco is like a good actor in this movie.
He gets some fun lines, and he gets to do some fun drunk acting, and he hams it up. But yeah, I'll agree with you there. I wouldn't call it a good performance.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's something. Yeah, the Peter and MJ have the conversation in the exact same spot. They have their like inaugural Spider-Man 1 conversation. But it is interesting how much different the writing is at this point. Like the first one, you used the word Shakespearean when we talked about Spider-Man 1, not just for like Defoe's performance, but a lot of it does feel like pseudo Shakespearean, as for as like you said, bombastic as Raimi likes to get.
Yeah.
I got that kind of like pining Shakespearean love dialogue from the first one, and it really feels a lot different in this one. Maybe it's because more people wrote the script. It goes in that kind of like other
three people made the story. One guy wrote the script. But Mary Jane in this movie just feels really off.
Yeah, I think it's as you have like 4 or 5 men writing a woman.
There's something. We'll get into this more as we go on, but yeah, Mary Jane is just very off in this movie.
Peter once again chooses to deflect MJ's advances, and she does reveal she's seeing someone who turns out to be J. Jonah Jameson Jr., I believe.
Yes, John Jameson.
First man to play football on the moon.
So
He
weird.
was kind of a nothing side character in the comics. Peter saves his space capsule from falling to Earth once, I think.
Yes, in like issue 1, I think, of Amazing
Mhm.
Spider-Man.
Which you think would color J. Jonah Jameson to be like, hey, maybe he's fine, but no, it never ever did. Not even
No.
for a second. Peter does, however, promise to see Mary Jane's play. Peter returns to his own true home, his little shithole apartment, where we get the fantastic Mr. Ditkovich, who is a fun character, but I've always felt out of everything to like name that after Ditko, they just went with like the one genuinely you can feel for Otto Octavius. He's a tragic villain, you know what I mean? But nobody feels for Ditkovich. Everyone,
He just wants his
he's
rent,
a fucking
man.
leech. He's a landlord.
He is a landlord, that is true.
Just
But
the entire character
it's
broke
like
down to just
I'm glad they at least gave Ditko a shout out beyond the
yeah.
credits.
It's more than nothing. It's more than nothing.
It's more than nothing.
Peter's apartment is exactly what you would expect for what he can afford in somewhere like New York City. It
Yes.
is horrendous that Spider-Man has to live here.
Even in 2004, before housing prices shot up even higher.
Absolutely. Harry's place was already palatial, but like that glow down is not. It's rough. Peter's not doing wonderful. He never is, but
No.
it's whatever. We get our first taste of Alfred Molina as Otto Octavius shortly thereafter, and while it is a very different performance from what Defoe offered up as Norman Osborn, I will say I think the casting is just as spot on. I'm a big, 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 big fan of
It's
Molina
still
as
Alfred
Octavius.
Molina is he's very, very
He,
good as
he
Octavius. I
is
don't like him as much as Willem Dafoe.
he is another good fit for what Raimi does in terms of that theatrical kind of performance he likes from like Spider-Man villains. We get a lot of great soliloquies. It really helps that he has like the voices in his head thing going on with the tentacles. That aspect of it leads to a lot of like facing the fourth wall, eyes darting back and forth kind of monologue, which he just nails.
It's very silly and overblown, but it's fun. Uh, I I enjoy Alfred Molina in this movie. I don't like him as much as Willem Dafoe because I don't think he goes crazy enough. He's a little more understated.
I think
Uh,
the difference there lies in the fact that the characters are inherently different. Before the accident,
yeah,
Otto Octavius, by all accounts, and by what we see in the movie anyway, is just a normal, fine, nice guy. It's the accident that
yeah,
fucks him up. Whereas with Norman Osborn, before he was huffing goblin gas, he was fucking still a horrible, awful father and a raving
a
lunatic.
horrible weirdo.
So we get our intelligence is a privilege, not a gift. Kind of stuff out of Otto at the
Good, good
dinner
line.
table. He gets lots of great lines. They discuss Peter's brilliant but lazy nature.
I really enjoy that Peter gets to like be smart in this scene.
Yeah, we get a lot of tell not show that Peter is smart. We get some stuff in the museum sequence at the beginning of the first one. Yeah, we it's good seeing him with somebody that's on his level. Willem Dafoe, not Willem Dafoe, but Norman Osborn was a smart guy, but outside of his smarts, he was more.
More of a businessman.
Whereas Otto is genuinely, just smarter than Peter, even not just as smart,
Yeah,
smarter. So that's even pre-accident to get a look at who we know is going to be our villain and see that aspect of him is fantastic. Peter understands Otto's, scientific nature and science talk in a way that Norman never could. They discuss a lot of things, including Peter's awful love life. And another thing I love that humanizes Otto is that he's one of those dudes that's like, oh, poetry, that's the answer, be all, end all.
oh,
It's
poetry.
he says it's more complicated than science, in his opinion. Which I think is another fun reflection of his personality. We learn a lot about Otto as like a person, way more, way more, way more than we did about Defoe, his Norman. But I feel like with a sequel, you have to kind of up the ante a little. You have to push your villain. You know what I mean? And they in
Yeah,
this way they really emotionally grow him before he's just a single minded. I need my precious tritium kind of guy.
Yeah, I feel like he's really good in this pre-Ock part, but once he becomes Doctor Octopus, he sort of, I don't know, becomes like more one-dimensional.
Yeah, definitely. He has a lot of depth to him that's just gone once he becomes a
It's just
villain.
it's just gone, and then it comes back at the end. And part of that is
Oh yeah.
because he becomes more of himself. But part of me wishes that he was sort of like a conflicted. It was more conflicted about it.
Yeah, we do get bits and pieces of that, but never anything substantial.
And I feel like part of me is wanting the Doctor Octopus from the PS4 game, just because that version of the character is so good.
Hmm. Definitely one of the
Uh,
better takes on it.
yes, it's just making me want PS4 Doc Ock. Anyway,
Peter does attempt to go and see Mary Jane's play, but he's refused entrance by the doorman. Well, let me, before I get ahead of myself, there is a police encounter on the way. I had it written down on a bullet point as some Spider-Man shit happens.
oh hell yeah,
Yeah, it's your average night in New York City. They're firing machine guns into apartment buildings from the road at Spider-Man. The whole affair ends up destroying his scooter. We get
this
we
poor Scooter.
a cop car flips and almost kills like a dozen people, which was rough. Would have been rough. Imagine if he wasn't there. Good Christ, New York sucks. Uh, he pulls up and a really really great scene. He pulls up to the theater where MJ's play is happening in the robber's car and is fully aware that it'll be towed. I always love that scene. That's a good joke. But in the end, he is refused entrance to the play by the doorman, and probably the second best Bruce Campbell. Well, maybe not. I don't know. The third one's fun,
The
but
third one is fun.
nothing beats the wrestler. If you the announcer, if you ask me, that's just
It's
fun.
yeah. The Usher is really fun. Two notes that I have. One, before the scene where he goes to the play, Peter like reads poetry in
A
the
laundromat, yeah.
the laundromat. That's a real goober moment. A,
Oh
cla-
yeah.
a classic goober moment that could only come from Tobey Maguire.
I like the idea of
Uh,
some guy just sitting in front of his dryer waiting for his shit, and he keeps hearing this grown man whisper to himself, "Day by day he gazed upon."
and the other one is that the play Mary Jane is in is the importance of being earnest.
Hmm.
And I think that's a very good argument for why this movie works, because this whole trilogy is a very earnest thing.
It's fun. Raimi has a habit of being very overt with his like literary references like that.
Yeah.
Ash cutting his hand off and then putting it under the bucket with a farewell to arms on top comes to mind. When he wants to make that kind of thing clear, he'll put it on the screen in big letters like that. So I think the play name
Yeah.
does factor into that kind of thing. Um, we get a brief cameo of the original Spider-Man theme song with the violin lady in this movie shortly thereafter, and I don't know why, but that always made me like very happy as a kid. Uh, just a fun side note there. I always like hearing it pop up. Um,
It's always good when they do it. They have it play, I think, in the beginning of Homecoming, and I'm like,
mhm.
fuck yeah.
It's a good one. I like it a lot. That had me like in the theater, like, oh fuck, yeah, all right, yeah. I'm glad I gave Homecoming a chance. Uh, After seeing MJ depart the play with her new man, Peter goes to drown his sorrows with crime fighting, as you do.
As
Uh,
you do.
but his world-renowned and beloved by all organic web shooters crap out on him. Uh, his powers are essentially fading due to the intense psychological conflict that he is experiencing every waking moment of his life.
You know what? He wouldn't be in this situation if he had web shooters.
Exactly. He'd be a normal guy swinging around with web shooters,
He
but
wouldn't be able to crawl up walls, but he could still get around.
he drags his ruined bike home after does he have a fall here?
He falls and then he goes in the elevator.
Yeah, that's right. Um is that the Hal Sparks scene or is that
That's the
later?
House Park scene.
Yeah, wow, Hal Sparks. How are you doing in 2020, dude? Where you been? Not you're what's gonna save 2020 is Hal Sparks.
God.
Cool Spidey outfit. Thanks. Where'd you get it? I made it. Looks uncomfortable. It gets kind of itchy. It rides up in the crotch a little bit, too.
But yeah, he drags his ruined bike past a row of Mary Jane posters. I want to say this is Peter at his lowest, but it absolutely is not. I think it gets lower later.
Even more torment.
I had it written down, and then I crossed it out that this is Peter at his lowest. He very much worse happens to him later. Peter, he leaves a voicemail at this point, I think, to Mary Jane, right?
Yes. He calls her on a public telephone and then says that he's Spider-Man.
Yeah, the call ends and he says, "You know what? I want to tell you I'm Spider-Man." And
I'm Spider-Man.
It's the same thing as the laundromat thing. I love the idea of someone at another payphone next to him just listening, like, what the fuck? Payphones in this movie, for those of you who were a little younger than us. No, I won't get into that. I'm not that big.
Don't make a fucking payphone joke.
Peter in this voicemail sounds very, very, very wimpy, and there is a split amongst the fan base where a lot of people, they think who's the better Peter and who's the better Spider-Man out of all these actors. And an argument against Tobey's Peter that I hear a lot of times is that he for the most part is portrayed as this big sad boy crybaby until literally like the end. No, he's still crying at the end of the third movie.
He's still crying at the end of the third movie. He's just always like that.
That's what people bring up a lot, is that he's very emotional, but like comic Peter very much is an emotional dork, and I feel like it's kind of a disservice to the character to be critical about that specific aspect, but I do acknowledge at the same time that he cries a lot, and while he's not crying in this scene, he might as well be.
It's not I agree with a lot of those points with the criticisms of Tobey, but I don't think I'm not one of those people like he cries all the time. I'm like, fuck it.
What he does is he nails the fact that Peter is really bad at talking to girls, even this girl.
Yes.
It's a poignant soliloquy he gives. There's a lot of soliloquies in this.
A lot of soliloquies. This is a soliloquy-filled movie.
From there, we get a great, great, great sequence in the form of the reactor demonstration. Yes. I absolutely love his stupid Otto's really stupid rubber band joke, the $20 bills and the rubber band. This man can talk to a crowd. He's not like his experiment versus a Norman Osborn experiment. Nobody's like stand at the edge of the room like, oh god, what's this madman gonna do? He was a little more respectable in that sense.
He does still have it in his apartment.
Yeah, true.
Another thing that I love is that the robot arms, like the main Dr. Octopus robot arms, it's just like a side thing compared to like the mini sun project. It's like that's so funny to me.
He shows them both off, but he's clearly like he's a little more chatty about the arms. He's like, "Oh, I'm glad you noticed."
He's like, "Oh, look at these cool arms I made." Also,
I was hoping you would ask. They're Bluetooth compatible. So he explains his project. He is going to essentially construct a mini sun, providing untold renewable energy, perhaps for the world, for New York City at the very least. From there, he unveils his helpers, these tentacles, arms, whatever you want to call them, which translate very well to the screen. I want to say this is where
they
Dykstra
look really good.
Really shine. It even 16 years later, it's still
even not just in the effects, but in like the actual like the art design of them, they look really good. I think they're my favorite versions of the arms, because there's like so many different versions of the arms, like the ones in the PS4 game and the ones in like the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon.
I want to say your average comic book depiction of them is like a really long hot dog shape. It's rounded at the end,
Yes.
They've got these goofy little like semicircle pincers on the end that are like just a little grabby shelf thing.
I like the coloring of them. They look really good.
Theoretically, we know one does, but maybe all four have like a 6-inch stiletto blade in the middle of them for some reason.
I don't know.
Maybe he put
The
that in
arms just
later.
do what the arms need to do.
Maybe he added that later when he was a villain. He found it on the ground and he was like, "I'm gonna put that in my."
It's like, oh, let me
tentacle."
do this.
So he unveils the arms, which are going to aid in the experiment. Fun modernization of the whole costume, pretty much. It translates very well. It's not the goofy green boiler suit with the yellow shoulder pads.
Yes.
When you adapt these kinds of costumes, there's a lot of ways to go about it. The Green Goblin was one way; it was very tactical. This was a lot more. It was realistic without forsaking the goofiness of the comics. It's a good way to put it.
As we're gonna find out through these movies, it's very hard to make a costume look both good on screen, like on a human being, and be accurate to the comics. They spend a lot of time throughout these movies trying to get that balance right.
It's a fine line you gotta walk.
You have to work. You have to have a really good designer if you want it to work properly.
The arms are AI powered, but there is a neural link inhibitor chip at the base at the top of it, at the base of Otto's neck. With all of that said and in mind, the experiment itself is powered by a resource called tritium, which I'm fairly certain is a real thing.
I don't think it is.
Who knows? Google probably does.
It is real.
Yeah, it could be. Who knows?
It's a radioactive isotope of hydrogen, though I don't think it comes in like golden geometric spheres.
Yeah, maybe they had that like custom pressed. That could be. Who knows?
There's only 23 pounds of it on the whole planet.
The money for all of this is being fronted by Oscorp, which Harry reminds us like 4 times, I think. So the reaction occurs. It's a demonstration going on, and Otto kind of refuses to pump the brakes on this, and the reaction kind of destabilizes. It's much stronger than can be controlled, and the destabilization of it causes this surge of power that essentially, if it had gone uncontained, could have taken out a sizable chunk of the district of New York that it was in. What it ends up doing is, I don't know if anyone else is injured, but Rosie, Mrs. Octopus, suffers a very, very awful Raimi death. We get that great shot of the glass flying at her with a reflection. I want to say she's the only fatality or injury, which
I think she is. I think she's the only fatality. Yeah, that fucking sucks.
For anyone else, that would be a serious hubris, like, okay, wow, I should stop thing, but not.
And it destroys the very fragile inhibitor chip. Like, why would you have that thing so exposed if it's like made of glass and like easy to break?
I should mention Spider-Man does, in fact, for the most part, save the day here. Not only does the reaction, it doesn't just stop on its own. He has to show up and yank some cords, some giant comical big plug cords out of the wall with.
Big plugs.
He saves Harry's life again. I guess that would be the first time, not again, but
yeah, this is the first time he saves Harry's life. This doesn't change anything, and I'm like, fuck you.
He embarrassed me by touching me, or whatever he says. Like, okay, man, Spider-Man just saved you. Whatever. All right, cool.
Says my favorite line in the movie. I have nothing left except Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. That's us right now, man.
That's us.
But yeah, great sequence there, which I'm fairly certain rather goes right into the his surgery. They're attempting to separate, I believe, Dr. Octopus from his appendages. But the tentacles kill all of the attending staff in a very Evil Dead sequence, right down to a snap zoom on a chainsaw.
It's great, especially this year. This year and last year, I watched the Evil Dead movies, and it made me realize how good this sequence is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can tell, even if you have no other knowledge of Raimi, you're like, wow, this guy could do horror movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very good. And it's like so silly too. Like when she like scratches her nails on the ground.
Yeah.
She gets pulled away.
It's very classic.
Anybody take shop class?
Otto escapes the scene and realizing what he's done and what he's become, he flees to what is it, a partially sunken cathedral,
Like an abandoned dock,
that just
out in New York Harbor. It's like, okay,
fat stained glass window on it.
it's just some abandoned warehouse.
But it's home. It's home.
It's home.
Live, laugh, love on the wall.
Otto gets his arms to put up a little live, laugh, love sign on the corner.
We get another Daily Bugle sequence. Dr. Octopus news is breaking. This is where he's dubbed Dr. Octopus by Jameson. And we get a great little Doctor Strange name drop, which is super, super relevant. And at the time of recording, at this point, the directors drop and change like flies. And I'm dreading the day this could change. But at this time of recording, Sam Raimi is attached to the Doctor Strange sequel.
Which is going to be fucking dope.
That has a lot of people's heads buzzing, the possibilities, what could happen.
Other than the new Spider-Man movie that's coming out, which
Yes.
I'm obviously going to say.
Yes.
This is the only other MCU movie that I'm interested in. It's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there for that. I will be in the theater for anything Raimi does ever, even if it sucks. So yeah, count me in. We get a great sequence where Aunt May is attempting to get refinancing done for the house, correct?
Yes.
She wants to she's listed all of her, collateral, her assets, all of that, and it is still not enough to get Joel McHale to
pre-hair plug Joel McHale.
Yeah, looking very Alton Brownie with his hairline in this movie. No offense, Alton Brown, love you.
Love you, King.
With that said, this is some serious Parker luck, maybe more Parker timing. They happen to be there at the exact moment Dr. Octopus is there to
steal gigantic bags of gold coin.
Get up, like they have in a vault behind a big cartoon vault door in a bank.
Yeah, like pirate doubloons.
Sam Raimi thinks in his head, okay, what happens at the bank? They got a big vault, and behind that vault is gold coins in big bags with $1.
Sam Raimi has never been into a bank before. He doesn't know what's inside a vault.
He had investors pay for Evil Dead 1. He didn't go to the bank and get a loan.
He's like, well, I mean, I've seen a couple Looney Tunes cards. They probably got gold in there, right?
That's how I've been paying for years, is big bags
of gold. I
always
pay Bruce in Spanish gold.
Well, Peter's not going to take that kind of thing lying down because he happens to, be Spider-Man and all. So there's a fantastic indoor action sequence there for a while. A lot of table flinging, a lot of
quips.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter is nowhere to be seen. We get a great quip from Joel McHale about what a hero the boy is.
Maybe he was going to get the cops,
Yeah, maybe he was throwing up in the bathroom. Whatever.
Having a nervous breakdown.
Peter and Doc Ock take the fight outside, and at one point, Aunt May is taken as collateral. Great performance from Rosemary Harris throughout this whole thing. Surprisingly good, actually. She beats Dr. Octopus upside the head with the umbrella in slow motion, preventing him from spearing Peter through the face and or chest with a giant knife.
We get the classic Butterfingers line.
Yeah.
It's our icon on Twitter. It's great.
Yeah, well, it's iconic, fairly. She dangles from a building for a while. Her entire opinion of Spider-Man changes after this scene, which I always felt was a good character growth moment. She was kind of not against him, but she always kind of had like a stay away from Spider-Man thing about her.
My only problem with that is that they don't really establish that.
I think it's brought up like once.
They bring it up at the beginning.
Like Peter taking pictures of him.
They bring it up at the beginning of this movie. Like, she doesn't talk about it at all in the first movie.
Yeah.
It's like, that's kind of sudden.
I feel like they could have done a little something with that.
They could have done a better job with it, but anyway.
And it's weirdly characterized too, because like Spider-Man obviously saved Mary Jane at the end of 1, and Aunt May likes and speaks to Mary Jane often, so you would think like, oh well, Anyway,
this whole sequence, Aunt May is kind of like really like silly for some reason. Like she's like hanging onto that umbrella, and she lands, and she thanks the statue.
She's got a manic depression going on because she didn't get the toaster.
Yeah, and like Aunt May is kind of weird in this movie. She's really good in some parts, but she's also really weird in others.
She was on new old people medicine.
You could say that about lots of the characters in this movie.
Very true. Very true. So from so Otto, I believe he doesn't escape with any. No one dies. I don't think he doesn't straight up murder anybody.
He doesn't murder anybody, but he does get money.
He does secure the funds he needs to build another sun generator. Well, most of the
A
funds.
bigger one because his octopus arms told him to.
It's New York, man. That kind of thing happens all the time, son of Sam.
I'm evil because my octopus arms told me to.
So we are then directed to the banquet scene in honor of J. Jonah Jameson Jr. I don't think it was for anything specific. I think it was just, hey, isn't he great kind of thing. Was it his birthday? Was it?
I don't know. They call him the handsome, the heroic, the delicious. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
It was 2004. Maybe they were recording for E or something. I couldn't tell you. It is a hell of a 1-2 punch of like emotional, like
Peter's having a bad time.
Scene. Peter has a horrible, awful time.
This is where Peter finds out that Mary Jane is his boss's girlfriend, which he's getting cucked by his boss's son.
Yeah. Harry is there, and he is drunk. I think James Franco could have even been drunk during this.
And we did talk about in the last episode they do hate each other, so maybe some reality came out there.
Could be.
Cinema verite.
He immediately launches into a fuck Spider-Man spiel as soon as he gets near Peter.
Spider-Man.
Peter has to, take pictures the whole night. He's denied hors d'oeuvres. He like boils internally when watching MJ, walk around with this new guy. And she makes a lot of like conflicted faces at him, which is like Mary Jane's entire character throughout this movie. They're never on the same page in this movie ever.
Peter and MJ have this conversation, and it sucks. It's horrible. MJ is like constantly, I don't know. It's just
they're both out of
she's talking about how she doesn't know him, and then Peter's like constantly quoting poetry like an idiot. I don't like the way either of them act in this scene. It's like, both, what the fuck is happening?
They have too much going on for each other. I think
this whole movie is like a romantic will they won't they, and it just sucks. I don't like it. I don't like how Mary Jane is written in this movie.
Yeah, that, like I said, maybe you can chalk that up to like that number of men writing a woman in this movie.
I guess. And part of it, I think I read somewhere that Sam Raimi, he's a big comic fan, but to simplify things, he like combined the characters of Mary Jane and Gwen and also Liz Allen, I guess the high school stuff, and combined them into one like amalgamation character. And you can really tell because she doesn't really act like Mary Jane Watson in a lot of these scenes.
We're talking about the same man that made a movie, Evil Dead 1, where Linda, his girlfriend, is a character, and then she's a totally different character in the next movie. I don't like what they do to Mary Jane Watson in the Raimi trilogy. I don't think she's well written. It could have been a lot better.
It could have been a lot better, but I just don't like the way that she acts.
Mary Jane reveals that everyone has seen the play except Peter, even her awful caricature of a father.
Yes. Well, he didn't see it. He went back to get money.
But he was there.
He was there.
I'm sure Norman would have seen it if Norman was alive.
If the ghost of Norman Osborn saw it.
I've seen her play Spider-Man.
The ghost of Uncle Ben saw it.
He was in the empty seat.
Yes, that's why the seat was empty. He had to leave it for his dead uncle.
So Harry slapped him across the face twice in possibly one of the most awkward scenes in any of these movies. Everyone's just watching this happen, and he just sits there and takes it. Even though Peter could throw this man into the sun if he wanted to, you know what I mean? Conga line of on his face. In the immediate aftermath of that, MJ and J. Jonah Jameson Jr. reveal that they are engaged.
I just call him the astronaut guy because he's like a complete nothing character.
I have him written as JJJ Jr. every time.
JJJJR.
Peter is in absolute shambles after all of this. He has to like take the photograph of this happening in front of him, this giant emotional cuckolding he's experiencing.
Yeah, and then he's like, "I'm getting married to Mary Jane Watson," and then it's like, "Oh yeah,
Take the picture, Parker.
take that picture, Parker."
He tries, once all is said and done, and he gets to go home. His powers fail on him again. We have this great framing device of him falling down alleyways multiple times.
What's with alleyways? This guy.
I wonder, maybe nitpicky, I don't know, but like if he's losing his powers, shouldn't falling from a skyscraper to the ground hurt much more than it has in these?
Yeah, I mean, he does have slightly accelerated healing. I mean,
Maybe he got lucky once in his life. Who knows? Meanwhile, during all of this, Otto has gotten very busy reconstructing his experiment via his
smoking a cigar, a true dude's rock moment.
Absolutely. Is he wearing sunglasses at this point, or does he still have the goggles on?
He's wearing, I think he's wearing sunglasses.
Yeah, he decided, God forgive me, I'm back to the old me.
Lord forgive me, but it's time to go back to the old me.
We get little, cuts here and there of his exposition. He's building his shit. He's talking to himself. Peter sees a doctor who is wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt under his doctor coat. I noticed that for the first time this watch through.
Yeah, he's wearing like a tie-dye shirt, and he basically just says that he's Spider-Man. He tries to backtrack it, like, "Oh, my friend, who is it?" Everybody in this movie knows that Peter is Spider-Man, except for like his close friends.
I love how they give this character, this doctor, this nothing character. He's wearing a tie-dye shirt, and he like sits down like a cool doctor next to Peter when they talk, and we never see or hear about him ever again.
I hope that doctor's doing all right.
Yeah. Was he a family doctor? Was he Peter's doctor when he was a scrawny nerd? And he's like, "Wow, Peter, now your heart beats exactly perfect, and you're muscly, and you can jump 15 feet in the air. You're doing great, dude."
Like, yeah, this guy totally knows he's Spider-Man.
He has to know. Your blood work says you're part spider. What's up with that?
Everybody knows Peter is Spider-Man, except for the people who don't need to know that he's Spider-Man.
We get phenomenal nod to the well, not just a nod, but a straight up shot for shot recreation of the classic Spider-Man No More.
This whole scene is really fantastic. He has like a conversation with Uncle Ben in his head.
Great Cliff Robertson dream sequence kind of thing.
Yes.
Visibly older, but no one can help that. He expounds on those principles that he wanted to drive into Peter: honesty and fairness and justice. And Peter kind of denies him and rejects him. It's very biblical. It's probably
the best. It's probably the best acting Tobey Maguire does in this whole movie.
Yeah,
I like to make fun of him because it's funny. But this is like the best acting he does in this movie.
Credit
in the whole trilogy.
The you can see the pain in his eyes when he tells him no. You know what I mean?
He does a really good job in this scene.
He knows he's been given a gift, and you see him struggle with the idea of putting it on the shelf.
Yes.
But with that being said, after he denies this burden and this curse and this dream, he chooses to be Peter, and his life immediately improves in every conceivable way.
It's time for the best scene in the movie.
Raindrops
keep falling on my head.
Fucking head.
Eat that hot dog.
He's excelling at school. He needs glasses again, but they're not quite Chris Chan glasses. He's handsome enough in them. He kind of fixes his bike. He maybe commits like a insurance fraud or something when he drops a tire on someone's car on accident. Who knows? He's actively choosing to not follow cop cars to active gunfire anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't have to follow every cop car. Like, not all cops are going to like crimes and stuff. So Peter is just like, I don't know. I guess he's like self-sabotaging himself as Spider-Man.
He even attends MJ's play.
He does.
Overjoying her to the point of forgetting her lines. That's a seed they planted, is that MJ is an actress of quality, but gets bad reviews. I can't imagine that helped her for getting lines, and the importance of being earnest. Who knows?
Who knows?
Um, they catch up. Peter tries to, in a very un-Peter kind of way, he kind of tries to hound in on her, and she has to like remind him she's engaged.
Punch
I
me,
guess
I bleed. Another weird Peter line.
yeah, like I've seen you bleed even when you were Spider-Man, dude. Like that,
Yeah,
you bled, you still bleed.
all of the romantic conversations between Peter and MJ feel very off.
Mhm.
They're not good.
And like, I like to believe Spider-Man believes in the sanctity of marriage and wouldn't try to like horn in on an engaged woman, but he clearly does
And it's like
multiple times.
it's like, why is Peter acting like this?
Yeah,
I understand why Mary Jane is acting like this, but why is Peter acting like this?
yes, exactly. Peter, he's unlucky in love, but he's also not like lecherous. I don't know.
It's just really weird.
At least like it's not whatever Spider-Man reboot we're gonna get in 50 years where he's in a polycule or something.
Oh my god!
Just give it time.
Holy shit!
Time.
Oh my god! Peter Parker in a polycule. We're having an open relationship, but he gets cucked by the Green Goblin.
That'll be the next like Black Cat story. I don't know.
Oh my god! Why would you put that idea in my head?
No, some Marvel executive is going to hear this now, and I'm going to get an email.
Marvel Executive 2072. We got to put Peter Parker in a polycule.
It's what the kids think is hip.
Oh my god.
Okay. So, Peter wants to choose MJ, but she says it's too late. And he goes on this spiel about how he's different and he's changed, which is something you can always believe when a man says it.
He says, I'm changed, I'm different, and he goes on this weird spiel, and then like MJ is like, no, I'm gonna get married in a church, blah 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 blah. And she gets in the taxi, and then she's like, you have changed, and I'm like, what?
What note are you trying to end this on?
I'm so confused. Why are they written like this?
She's sending some very mixed Spidey signals,
and we're gonna. Oh my god. Very mixed Spidey signals, and obviously that's gonna completely fuck up the ending of this movie.
Yeah. It
women, we'll get there when we get there.
Women are the ultimate mystery, especially if you're trying to write them.
I guess so.
So from there, we get a very... I don't know if I want to call it, like, maybe this is nitpicky of me. I don't know. A garbage man brings J. Jonah Jameson the actual real-life Spider-Man suit, right? Presumably there's, like, not that many that he has. It's from the trash can. And not only does J. Jonah Jameson go, okay, this is one from a trash can. I'm going to buy it, even though it's, this could be anything. This could be some smelly, like, cosplay somebody got rid of out of a hotel. But he buys it for $100 fucking dollars. And you would think, like, God, that has to be more, right? It had to be worth more.
Jonah Jameson is a cheapskate.
Well, I understand that, but if I were the garbage man, I would have gone, okay, well, I'm fucking taking it to anywhere. I know he name drops eBay, but, like, you realize what this is, right? I could go anywhere with this and get thousands. Just say the word.
Go to the fucking New York Times.
Yeah, the Post, something.
The New York Post. I feel like the Daily Bugle is like the Marvel version of the New York Post.
That's the plot of the Post 2 with Tom Hanks and
the Post.
They get a Spider-Man costume and they have to decide whether or not to buy it. I love the deleted scene. Is it in Spider-Man 2.1? I know.
I never watched Spider-Man 2.1. I have no clue.
That deleted scene of J. Jonah Jameson wearing the suit and
that's really great.
around on his desk and stuff. That's good. I've never seen 2.1 either. That'd be fun to check out someday. The only thing I know about it besides that is they use a different take of Mr. Aziz's Go. He still yells that, but it's not that exact Go. It's bizarre. New York is clamoring for the return of Spider-Man. The headlines about it even. Later in the movie, we get a headline saying that crime is up 75%.
And they're like, "Where is Spider-Man?" And I'm like, "What? What?
Where do you think you all you did was write newspaper articles about how much he sucks all day?" Peter passes a mugging in progress and does nothing, which is kind of like the ultimate like not the lowest point or anything, but like the most not himself. I think
he's starting to realize that maybe he should change his mind.
He needs to keep doing the I can't have what I want thing because he's been given this, this responsibility. Ooh.
And then I think Peter and Aunt May have that conversation next.
Yeah, Peter admits the role that he played in Uncle Ben's demise, and he explains to Aunt May. He doesn't outright say, "I wrestled Bonesaw." You know what I mean?
He leaves enough out that it's still the truth, but that he's holding back. This is a really, really good scene.
He admits his deception, I guess, for lack of a better word, and May retires for the night. Just absolute devastating.
Yeah, this is a really, really good scene.
Just you really buy them as a family unit, I think.
Absolutely. Rosemary Harris is very good. When she gets the opportunity to be really good, she's really good.
You buy her heartbreak.
Yes.
I think in this scene. She actually seems not disappointed, but like repulsed at Peter.
Yeah, and like Peter, I feel really bad for both of them because like Peter's like trying to like express this, like I'm really sorry, like I don't, like he feels obviously horrible about it, but then also at the same time, Aunt May is like, oh shit, it's really well done.
Scene, yeah, it's a bummer, but it's beautiful. Otto, good old Doc Ock. He's not really Otto really anymore. He doesn't have the full on transition of mental state into Dr. Octopus or anything, but he is what he is now.
Yeah, he's just silly octopus man now.
He visits Harry to obtain more precious tritium, and Harry says that he will provide it in return for Spider-Man. He at first wants him dead, but then he changes his mind and asks it for him alive.
Harry is such a little shithead.
He's awful. Peter, we get a great sequence where Peter encounters a burning. Is it an apartment building?
Yeah,
that's what I thought. He hears there's a child on the second floor, I believe, stuck.
Yes.
Great special effects sequence, by the way. I have a hard time telling what of it is a set and what is like digital, enhancement, because a lot
of really great scenes back to back to back.
Yeah. This is the score in this scene. I wanted to make a special note of too. It's very, very hair raising. Very.
They reuse a lot of the same score from the first movie, but it's still really good.
Oh yeah, no, Elfman, solid choice. I think it blows my mind. He's the same guy from Oingo Boingo. You know what I mean? Like, if David Byrne made a score for a movie, would it be this good?
I don't know.
I'd love to see David Byrne's Spider-Man score, but that's another universe. Who knows?
I guess so.
Peter does end up rescuing the child. It seems a little. Is he using his powers in this scene? Because he hoists the kid pretty easy, and he makes some pretty long jumps. So I'm not sure. If the takeaway is supposed to be
I don't know whether that's the heightened reality or if that's Peter using his powers.
He's either getting them back or like he's subconsciously like ready to get them back, I think is the takeaway.
I don't know. It's either one of those. Anyway, this scene is really good.
It's great. He gets the kid out. He has to, hit some oxygen on the way out because he inhaled a bunch of smoke, and he overhears that someone on an upper floor did not make it out. Strikes a real sour chord within him, and
that's really good.
He feels like he did good enough, but not, it gets taken from him.
Not what he could have done.
Yeah. After the fact being the worst part of it.
Yes.
Gives a great, I think is he talking to himself? I don't remember. Or
he's like, do I not get to have what I want?
The what I want, the what I need soliloquy. So many goddamn soliloquies.
Lots of fucking soliloquies.
It's Experian, man. It is. We get some great character stuff from the Ditkovich daughter, bringing him cake and milk, just hanging out, just vibing. She brings him a message from
Ditkovich's daughter has like a horribly obvious crush on Peter, and it's really cute.
Yeah, which is like it's I get it, but it's also interesting, like him. You know what I mean?
Like, dude, forget Mary Jane. Hook up with her. She's right there.
Yeah, dude. This is rebound.
Stop
you know what I mean?
Stop simping for Mary Jane.
Peter needs modern dating advice.
Exactly. We're on God, Peter Parker. We are going to get you some pussy.
my homie in the corner there thinks you're cute. It's Peter Parker.
Yo, my boy Peter thinks you're cute.
Yeah, he's a little shy.
He's a little shy.
God damn. Anyway, she brings a message from Aunt May. Peter goes to see her, and she has decided to move from the Parker homestead to a smaller apartment. She's packing up, getting stuff ready. There's some little neighbor kid down the street that, Peter's like, oh my God, I'm an old man now. The child is large, typical kinds of coming home when you're older kind of stuff.
Another really great Aunt May scene.
The little neighbor boy asks after Spider-Man, knowing that Peter is the bugle photographer that Aunt May probably never shuts up about, and Pete kind of relents a little bit, both internally and like outwardly. He's like, I don't know, Spider-Man, May does give a great speech. It's you can tell she spent a lot of time around Ben Parker.
Too few characters out there flying around like that, saving old girls like me. And Lord knows, kids like Henry need a hero. Courageous, self-sacrificing people, setting examples for all of us. Everybody loves a hero. People line up for them, cheer them, scream their names, and years later they'll tell how they stood in the rain for hours just to get a glimpse of the one who taught him to hold on a second longer.
Aunt May gives a very, very rousing Ben-esque speech. It causes Peter to relent enough to, he decides he needs to resume his career, so to speak. And after, he makes that decision, he internalizes it, more or less his powers essentially return to him in full force after he... what is specifically he say? He needs to learn how to focus on what he wants.
Yeah, not quite, because then he falls down and hits his back on a car.
Which, fun fact, not quite a trivia fun fact, but a plot fun fact, that car he hits is a Ford Focus.
Nice.
I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not, but I think it's funny either way. We get this weird scene at MJ's apartment where she wants to replicate the kiss with JJ Jr. He visibly is like, what the fuck? What are we doing?
Number one, the astronaut guy, I don't think he's a good actor.
For the longest time, I thought he was Billy Crudup from Big Fish and Dr. Manhattan.
Oh my God.
I just realized, no, he kind of just looks like that.
And if MJ is still thinking about Peter and still thinking about Spider-Man, it's like, does she even like this guy?
He's just, some guy.
It's like, I don't want to sound like a crazy person,
but they're this close to getting married, right? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a crazy person, but part of me feels like MJ just sort of hooked up with the astronaut just to get back at Peter. That's a really weird way of thinking about it, but that's just how it feels.
There's no astronaut for Peter to hook up with, it's a revenge opportunity.
Yeah, she just feels weak. She feels off. She doesn't feel like Mary Jane Watson. That's my problem with her.
She got caught up in a rebound that went too far, is all it is, I suppose.
And she just didn't say no. She was like, okay.
She calls Peter to meet up, possibly reconcile. We get a great little, more emotional, terse, tense dialogue between the two. Peter backtracks as soon as MJ is ready.
Again with the will they won't they. I'm gonna go crazy.
Her timing, just he tells her that he doesn't love her, and it's really unconvincing. He's like, I don't love you.
It's just this will they won't they makes me want to tear my hair out. It's like, come on.
Yeah, especially knowing we can all, even if you've never seen this movie, how it ends. You can take a pretty strong guess. I don't know. It's been set up enough anyway. But she asks him for a kiss to figure. I think internally, it was let's make sure he's Spider-Man kind of thing, because she does that little like
Yeah, and it's
gas
like
thing at the
kiss
end of
me
one.
even though I'm engaged to this astronaut man. It's like, what the fuck?
Before I fully give up on you, let me determine if you're Spider-Man or not. Otto decides that Peter hasn't been reading enough poetry and throws a car through the window to protest this union. The rubble, kind of settles, and he demands from Peter a date with Spider-Man to, hang out while taking MJ as
You,
collateral.
me, schoolyard, noon. We're gonna fight.
I want to fight Spider-Man, and I'm taking your girlfriend as my bargaining chip.
MJ gets kidnapped again.
Again, yeah, for not the last time either in her life.
Not the last time.
This is just another Tuesday for MJ Watson. We get a great rubble throw off from Spider-Man, from Peter.
Yes.
Great glasses dropping and breaking scene while the Elfman score swells. Just classic shit.
Gets his powers back. It's fucking awesome.
Swings by the bugle, steals his suit back from Jonah with a phenomenal moment from him. Some great lines there. His little come to God over man, Spider-Man fucking rules, and I never noticed.
And then when he was like, I want Spider-Man, and they spin to the He's Back newspaper, that shit gives me goosebumps every time. It's fucking amazing.
It's timeless. It's
like, yeah, and then it immediately transitions into probably the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, it's the train sequence, ladies and gentlemen.
It's the fucking train sequence.
They meet for this fight, and really the main thing I have circled in here is they beat the piss out of each other.
I feel like I've been ragging too much on this movie, but this scene is just as good as people say it is.
It has a lot going for it, but it does have some turds mixed in with the Raisinets.
This train scene is just as good as people say it is.
No, for sure. It's frankly, it's probably the most iconic action sequence in all three of these movies.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
I think this fight goes harder than any fight in any of the movies too. I know Peter's pretty messed up by the end of the first fight at the climax of the first movie, but the way that him and Doc Ock beat on each other in this movie,
they beat the fuck out of each other.
It's so intensely personal. It's not even like close. Otto essentially he breaks the acceleration on this train, and after a good amount of back and forth slapping each other around, he just kind of bounces after breaking the accelerator. Peter gets on top of the train, attempts to stop it through a various couple different ways, gets his face burned and has to rip off his mask in front of an entire train load of New Yorkers. And decides the only way to stop this train is going to be through physics, and using his webs as a delayed series over many buildings of a delayed series of dragnets. So he does this. He manages to stop the train.
He makes a bunch of very silly faces.
Some really GIF-worthy faces. I feel like more people have seen that. People that even have seen the movie have seen the GIFs, I think. It's
a very silly face.
It's a good face. Inspired a million YouTube poops, probably.
Yes.
Peter saves the day, but at the cost of literally every ounce of energy in his body. He's been double crucified, pretty much.
Speaking of crucified,
yeah, he falls. He's caught by the citizens who carry him over their shoulders backwards.
They do a full Jesus carry. It's like a little two on the head.
He's a giant capital T. His arms are out to the side, and there's literally an angel choir Elfman.
It's not quite as bad as Man of Steel when he flies backwards, but it's getting there.
It's not subtle. It is what I'll say.
No,
it's not, and it doesn't try to be. The citizens pull him in. They put Spider Christ down on the ground and lay him to rest, and he awakes. He has that great little moment where he touches his face and realizes, oh fuck! In a very 2020 moment, he realizes he's not wearing his mask on public transportation.
I do like when that guy is like, oh, he's just a kid. He's no older than my son. I'm like, he looks 35.
My son's a kid. He's in the basement all day playing Fortnite. He's 40.
He's playing Quake 2 LAN parties with his friends. That's all he ever does.
Some lovely, fantastic New Yorker children hand him his mask back, and they all swear to secrecy. Only the kids swear to secrecy, by the way. None of the trained people did, so they can take their story to the view.
They could
But the victory is fleeting, though, because Doc Ock returns moments later and returns to collect Peter, this weakened specimen before him. He disappears with him. And now Otto is capable of keeping a 29-minute delivery promise and brings Peter back to the Osborn mansion, where he pieces out with the tritium. Otto is really, if anything in this movie, he's punctual. He shows up, he does what he does, and leaves. You know what
he does like a Batman disappearing act.
Oh yeah, very very Batman. Otto, he's gone. Harry grabs his, ornate dagger that he leaves on a stand.
That he just
in the
keeps.
room. The lifestyles of the rich and famous. The dagger you keep in your.
I'm Robin Leach. We're going to look at the daggers of the rich and famous.
The Osborn dagger is most known for its large ruby hilt.
Crafted of the finest 28-karat gold, the Osborn dagger.
Solid goblinium. Harry, he's got Spider-Man on the couch. He pulls the knife. He unmasks him, and son of a bitch, it's Peter Parker.
Oh my God!
Whoever would have guessed, except everybody.
Who would have known?
Get a great gasp and back up from him, and he right before Peter leaves here, he goes, "You killed my dad," and instead of saying, "Actually, no, I didn't," that I can explain that and defend myself with evidence. Here's what happened. Peter, what does he say?
He says there are things bigger than you and me. And it's like, why the fuck did you not just tell him? Does he even know his dad was the Green Goblin? I don't think he knows it until at the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Peter,
like, why the
you know what? I need to retract
so
my
dumb.
earlier statement. It's not that Peter doesn't know how to talk to girls. It's that Peter doesn't know how to talk.
Peter doesn't know how to talk to anyone in this movie.
Even his best friend, who, this should be night and day, super easy to talk to about.
It's like, come on, dude.
On his way out, Peter puts two and two together about the tritium deal and takes his ass to Otto's lair, his sunken sanctum. And this leads to our final climactic arc of the movie. Another phenomenal sequence.
A big fight. It's awesome.
Great effects, great action. The fight over the second sun experiment that's in progress.
The even bigger one.
MJ is almost sucked into it at one point, but we get a great pull away from that from Spider-Man. Otto is about to kill him at one point. MJ attempts to clobber him with a board. It's very, very comical. But we get to the point where Peter unplugs the machine, but it's too late. The sun is sucking down mass like me at any given Chinese buffet. Otto awakens from a nasty jolt that he received during the fight, and he's kind of normalized a little bit. He's not as genocidal and murderous for just a minute or two.
He decides to become good now.
Yeah, and Peter sits down and unmasks for a second because that's all he's been doing this movie.
People get mad about MCU Spider-Man for getting unmasked all the time. Like, he does this shit all the fucking time in Spider-Man 2.
That's the one that everyone calls the best, and he does it in this
just
one
constantly.
Too. Constantly. This is what finally causes Otto to essentially overpower his tentacles mentally. Peter pretty much talks him down from all of this. Maybe things would have been different if he knew he was Peter sooner, but who's to know? Otto explains that the best way to kill this thing is going to be to drown it in the river to kind of cancel the mass out. And he decides he's going to be the one to do it, choosing to die rather than continue his monstrous new life.
And he did say when he first got to the docks, he's like, I should be at the bottom of the river. And you know what? It all comes back.
Chekhov's river.
Chekhov's river. They might not be able to write women, but they can write Chekhov's guns.
He kind of gives Peter this last knowing, regardful look before he goes on to do what he does. We get a great I like this scene where MJ realizes that Peter is in fact Spider-Man for sure.
We get the classic Toby scream.
Yeah,
the eternal
she just about gets rosied like immediately from some flying debris, and we get a great no. I can't even begin to do it. It's he saves MJ, and they have some decent quips, some romantic banter there. Some this is heavy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Otto dies partially a hero. But he dies a real human being, if you ask me.
A real human being.
Absolutely. We get some more conversation between MJ and Peter, and she once again he denies her, but he kind of explains this time. Like, do you see why? Like, do you get it now? Does it all make it?
I feel
sense?
like if he did explain earlier, like, we wouldn't be in this scenario.
Sure. But at the same time, if I were MJ and I was as serious about it as I was, I'd say, Peter, I've literally already been captured twice, and I wasn't 100% sure you were Spider-Man until today. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. You know what I mean? But she seems to accept it, that she would never be safe, and she slides down, and they part ways for now. Harry, meanwhile, I imagine, got drunk again if he wasn't already, and
He gets sloshed.
After hallucinating his father appearing to him, good old Storm and Norman Osborn's back.
Yeah.
Harry shambles his way into the Goblin Cave. He discovers it. Even his hallucination father is like a psychopathic abuser who just calls him a piece of shit or whatever.
You're weak. You fucking suck, Harry.
Come into my Goblin Cave and be my son.
Avenge me!
We get our final sequence of the movie where MJ leaves Astronaut Man at the altar.
What the fuck?
Great quip from Jameson about don't open the caviar. Call the caterer. We get this bizarre, super exposed slow-mo, like Snapchat filter looking scene where she's running past a fountain and birds are flying.
I just feel bad for the astronaut.
He didn't do anything wrong.
Like, she was I feel like I'm sounding like a crazy person, but I feel like MJ just hooked up with the astronaut just to get back at Peter.
Yeah,
like that's the only reason they got together.
The only thing you should be mad as an audience member at the astronaut for is that he's not Peter. You know what I mean? That's the motivation.
It's like,
he's never outwardly an asshole. It'd be one thing if they made him like his dad, But
like, if they did that, I would understand it a little more.
Some guy.
He's just a nice enough, maybe a little stupid. Maybe that's just the actor's voice. But it's just like they fumbled Mary Jane so bad in this movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. They could have done a lot better. But with that said, we do get a nice little pan shot, and she's in the doorway. They talk for a minute, and she pretty much accepts and chooses the danger of this life because she says something about not being able to live, not being able to survive without Peter. And once again, in my head, I'm like, him? But
this guy,
it is what it is. He is Spider-Man. Don't forget. We get a great. I think we get our first and maybe only go get him, Tiger.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, that's.
She said the line, but she still sucks.
Right. And we cap our movie with some more phenomenal Elfman and another great
music.
Another swell of Spider-Man music as he swings out into the sun, and we get another gratuitous American flag at the end because fuck yeah, America.
Fade from Danny Elfman into Dashboard Confessional.
Yes. Is Nickelback in this in the second score, or is that just the first one?
I think it's just the first one because we get Vindicated.mp3.
I have the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack on CD somewhere. I got it from Goodwill. It's got Hoobastank on it.
My God, it has Hooba. I have to look this up now.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture of it later. I've got it on my shelf right here. But yes, that is Spider-Man the Second, Spider-Man Part 2, even.
The Second.
Here we are with trivia and fun facts. If you look closely, in Peter's room, in his shithole apartment, apparently on his dresser, you can see the photo he took of MJ at the museum sequence in Spider-Man 1, that Polaroid or whatever. I did not notice that until I looked back for it personally after reading that. I thought that was an interesting little quiet character set piece they hid in there.
It's nice.
Tobey Maguire experienced very, very severe back pain that almost made him quit the movie at one point.
Yeah.
They literally had Jake Gyllenhaal lined up and ready to play Peter Parker because they thought Maguire was going to have to leave the project.
Jake Gyllenhaal would have been so fucking good.
He would have been good. I think
he would have knocked it out of the park.
I think that I would say we're better off having had Toby because we know what we got out of him, and it ended up being
we would have been better off having the consistency of Toby. But he did make a good Mysterio. If he was Spider-Man, he wouldn't be Mysterio. And I don't know. That's like a Sophie's Choice scenario.
That line when Peter is getting his powers back and he goes, "I'm back," and hurts his back and says, "My back." That was in like an in-script joke reference to Tobey Maguire's crippling back pain. The boys on the train who hand the mask back to Toby are Tobey Maguire's half brothers, which I never knew.
And I think one of the girls on the train is Chloe Dykstra, John Dykstra's daughter, who's like a host, internet personality.
Oh, how about that? The alleyway that Peter Spider-Man No More's in and leaves the suit is in Raimi's eyes, that's intended to be the Kiss alley, but if you ask me, it just kind of looks like an alley in New York.
It just looks like a random alley.
No, I never had that visual click, but that's what it's
me neither.
According to Raimi, that's supposed to be the same alleyway. So believe that if you do. Who knows?
Every alleyway in New York is the same.
The fighting in the train sequence was actually the first filmed thing in the movie. They got that out of the way right off the bat, which it really colors later. Like imagine having to act later, like them meeting each other scene. Like we already did the train scene. On set to make things easier for the puppeteers and set people and effects people, Alfred Molina named the arms Larry, Harry, Flo, and Mo. So
fuck yeah, that's canon now.
Yeah, I love the idea of Molina being like, "Excuse me, can you get Mo out of my face?" You know,
that's fucking awesome.
Willem Dafoe was originally not intended to return. He was walking home to his apartment one night and saw the cast and crew filming nearby and filmed his cameo that night after saying hello.
Dude's rock. That's a dude's rock moment.
I almost don't want to believe that, but I want to say I double checked and verified that, and apparently it's true. I can't imagine this movie ending without the Norman cameo because
I'm so happy that Willem Dafoe decided to show up in the other two movies, because especially in the third one he brings a much needed sense of, like, oh, remember this from the good movie? It's like, oh yes.
He has his flair to it. He's part of it.
It's so good.
As I mentioned, Joe's Pizza is a real place, and its phone number was the phone number in the material and stickers and stuff in the movie. So for a long time, they received like prank calls and stuff. I want to say they still have the same phone number, and it's been enough years that it's fine now, but that was a problem at one point. Stan Lee's cameo was originally going to be he stole that guy's pizza guy. That was going to
would have been awesome.
But they opted for whatever he did in this movie.
We didn't even talk about the Stan Lee cameo in the first movie.
No, we did not.
They're both really short. He in the first one he saves a little kid at the Unity Day festival, and in the second one he saves a lady from some falling debris at the bank fight. It would have been great.
Molina called this movie, rather he said about this movie that it had the hardest working crew of any production he'd ever worked with, and I totally believe that.
Yes.
A lot of love and a lot of work went into this movie. Sam Raimi, during, I want to say, I don't remember which sequence it is, when Peter is bending down and he gets hit by two backpacks in a row.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
That's pretty early on, right before he gets yelled at by Dr. Connors.
Yeah. The second backpack that hits him, that's Sam Raimi. And
fuck yeah.
That's genuine anger from Tobey Maguire because he hit him pretty hard.
Nice.
This movie took the one-day opening box office record. It beat Lord of the Rings: Return of the King for it. During production, Raimi and Elfman had a bit of a falling out, but apparently got over it. I think they reunited. I think Raimi still, was credited for the 3 score. They ended up working together again later on that Oz the Great and Powerful movie.
Yeah. They have a different composer for Spider-Man 3, but they still use a lot of the same music from the first 2.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that Elfman and Raimi patched stuff up.
At least enough to work together,
Yeah.
anyway. So there, when the garbage guy, when he says he could get more for the Spider-Man suit on eBay, 4 of the Spider-Man 1 production suits were stolen and put on eBay in 2001. So that was another little fun script joke about getting more for the suits on eBay. Apparently, Rosemary Harris did some of her own stunts, which is even doing some of them is
awesome.
A testament to her character. That's great. Alfred Molina wanted the physique of a 50s bodybuilder for Doc Ock, and I get that with what he's going for. He's a really rectangular guy,
especially when he has the first sequence when he uses the arms and he has like that leotard on. He does kind of have the thickness.
Yeah, I totally buy that. If that's what he was going for, I see it. Tobey Maguire is a vegetarian, and in that hot dog sequence you pointed out earlier, he's eating a veggie hot dog. I thought that was worth mentioning.
Nice.
The original working title for this film was The Amazing Spider-Man, but I'm really glad they went with Spider-Man 2. Some other considered titles were Spider-Man Unmasked and Spider-Man No More, which would be interesting, I think, calling it Spider-Man No More, but I don't think it's fully fitting for the movie.
I think I read somewhere that they wanted to call it Spider-Man 2 Lives, which is even worse.
2 Spider, 2 Man.
2 Spider, 2... Yeah, just go by the Fast and Furious titles.
The sounds, the Foley sounds for the tentacles movement were based on piano wire and motorcycle chains.
Nice.
And my final little bit here, I mentioned in the last one, I definitely want to mention this kind of stuff for each of them, because I think this kind of alternate stuff is really fun. Some other actors that were considered for Otto Octavius were Robert De Niro, who I want to say I mentioned last time was also considered for Norman Osborn.
I don't see him as Norman Osborn. I kind of do see him as Otto Octavius a little bit.
That's a maybe for me. I'm not fully.
That's a maybe. I don't know if you can play the smart stuff.
David Duchovny was considered for Doc Ock. I would have loved to see that. To be frank,
that would have been awesome.
It's the voice for me. I can hear him going, "I will not die a monster." I love it.
It would have worked.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was considered for Dr. Octopus, which
fuck.
I think that's bordering on Mr. Freeze level. Like,
I think this movie came out the year he became governor of California.
Yeah, he's a little busy.
Maybe that's what got in the way.
And finally, Sam Neill was considered for Doc Ock.
Sam Neill, I could see as a good Norman Osborn.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'd buy that more than Doc Ock, but he was considered one way or another. It was on the table. It got pitched.
I think he would have been good.
At the end of the day, we got Molina, and we're better off for it, I think. And that's all I got for my fun facts this time around.
All right. So, I think we're going to move on to the ratings and the rankings. Now that we've watched 2 movies, we can actually rank them.
Sure.
So, Alex, what would you say is your rating for this movie?
My star rating for this movie, I'm going to have to say I want to call this a near perfect movie. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I gave Spider-Man 1. Did I give it a 4?
You gave it a 4.5.
I gave it a 4.5. I want so badly to give this a 5 stars, but there are little things that make the plot clunk here and there.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I'm also going to give Spider-Man 2 a 4.5. but with the tiniest little asterisk you could possibly imagine in the corner to notate it as a higher 4.5 than Spider-Man 1, if that makes any sense at all. I would call them the same quality of movie. It's just the things that work in the individual movies work in different and louder ways than each other, and the things that don't work the same. Does that make sense? I think they're
Yeah.
the same quality, but it's different ingredients that make them two different things.
Yeah. So I guess for the ranking, you would put 2 above 1.
That's correct.
All right. So for my star rating, I'm in the same boat as you. When I first rewatched, I hadn't watched this movie in like a long time, and I rewatched it back in April. And I felt a lot of the same way. I wanted to give it 5 stars really bad when I first watched it, but it's got lots of really great moments, and some are even better than the first. The train scene, the Spider-Man No More scene. But there are lots of other little things that keep me from enjoying it even more than the original.
It's a lot of the characterization of the movie.
A lot of the characterization is my problem.
Mm-hmm. Predominantly with MJ, but in broad strokes, Peter as well.
Broad strokes, Peter. Peter's going to get worse in Spider-Man 3.
That's going to be a fun episode because this next one, because I have a love for Spider-Man 3, but I am also the most critical of it. So like, it's going to be time.
It's going to be interesting.
We got a little critical with this one, but at the end of the day,
we got a little more critical. This movie, yeah, I feel like I don't want to say this movie's overrated, but I feel like it gets maybe just a pinch too much praise because I feel like the strength of the Raimi trilogy is getting the themes of Spider-Man right. And when the characterization starts to slip, like it does in this movie, things start to fall apart. This movie is still a 4.5 banger. It's still really, really good.
I will say that with your idea that it gets just a little too much praise, I think one thing that has changed that mindset in the last few years is, I won't get too into it, but a lot of people believe that there is a different best Spider-Man movie now. So
yes, especially
that has changed things quite a bit.
Yeah, but it's those little things, the weird characterization, lots of other things that don't really mesh with me. I don't like it as much as the first one.
Really?
For me, it's I find myself wanting to revisit the first one more than I want to revisit the second one.
That makes sense.
So for me, it's Spider-Man and then Spider-Man 2.
Interesting. I pegged you for a 2 over 1 guy, but no, that makes sense the way you phrased it.
I know. I even surprised myself when I rewatched it back in April. I'm like, do I really feel this way? It's like, yeah, that's it. That's really how I feel.
Well, no, that makes sense to me, buddy.
But yeah, that's our show. It's a long one. Thank you so much for listening. If you got a question or a comment that you want us to read on next week's episode, be sure to send it to our email address, spideysignalspodcast@gmail.com, or you can shoot us a DM on our Twitter, @SpideySignals. Next week, we're going to cover Spider-Man 3. So get ready for that shit. Stay responsible. Bye.
Love ya.
Spider-Man, friendly neighbor Spider-Man, in the man,